Hello guys, welcome to my channel Lucid Fanfic, and if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest videos. So be sure to stick around until the end, and let's get started. Third POV. Several days have passed since Izuku had arrived in America, and it was now Thursday. Multiple things had happened, and they had also decorated his room a bit and gotten him new clothing. Izuku had also started talking to the therapist a bit and opening up slowly. The first session was tense and Hisashi had to stay in the room since Izuku didn't really want to let go of him once they arrived. Note: I'm BSing on some of the therapist thing, so don't take any of it as reality. The therapist told Hisashi that it was a natural defense mechanism that Izuku had developed. Hisashi has presented himself as a safe home, as a protector that can wipe out any threats to Izuku, so Izuku is latching onto him for anything he finds uncomfortable. It's more of how a small child of a 2 or 3-year-old would act when they would be introduced to newer things that make them uncomfortable. They seek shelter behind their parents. Izuku is more or less doing that now as he didn't have safety growing up. Indeed, he has safety during 0 to 4, but after that his safety net crumbled, and now Izuku was latching onto his new one in fear that it would leave him like how his parents neglected him last time. Hisashi was glad to have that information and could observe Izuku for any habits that would be concerning or that would show that he was acting younger than he was since he now had a safe home. The therapist said that some habits would likely show up, but they would go away the longer he felt safe, and Hisashi kept protecting Izuku from major threats or dealt with things like an actual parent should. So if someone tried to bully him, then Hisashi should step in and solve the issue, unlike his former parents. That will work a lot of the habits out of Izuku that he would develop that makes him appear as a younger child than he actually was. After the first session, they agreed twice-a-week sessions moving forward until the therapist thought Izuku was in a good state to lower the numbers. Of course, more could be added at any time. Outside of the therapy, the clothes shopping was more enjoyable for Hisashi in Izuku's view since Hisashi was enjoying dressing Izuku up in anything and everything he could find. Moving outside of both of those things, into more important things, we come up to the court case. Seth King, Hisashi's lawyer for almost everything, called them up and informed them that the court wanted Izuku and Hisashi to both appear for the case since the court judge wanted to physically see Izuku. They were confused about why but accepted it. That is how they found themselves waiting outside of a courtroom with Seth King, who was acting as the lawyer. They were soon called into the courtroom and stood with their lawyer. Izuku jumped in his father's lap, since there were only 2 seats. The judge called for the court into order, and there was an attorney representing the government, and then their side since they were requesting something of the government, so they had a representative there. Let's begin. You may be wondering why I called you here, Mr. Midoriya. I wanted to physically see the said child that was being claimed to ensure that they were indeed real. I also want to use my quirk on him. My quirk allows me to tell if someone is telling the truth or not, but it's subjective to that individual person's knowledge. Are you willing to consent to this, Izuku? The judge asked Izuku, who looked at his dad. This is your decision, Izuku. Just know I will be here if you feel uncomfortable with any of her questions, okay? Hisashi said, and Izuku felt less tense after that and agreed. The judge said Izuku could stay there if he wanted to sit in the seat next to her. Izuku decided to go up to the seat. When did you first meet Hisashi Midoriya? The judge asked Izuku. He looked at her and started to answer. I first met him, as far as I can remember, on the beach where I had planned to sleep the night since I had just run away from my mother's, and who I know now is my stepfather's home. But Dad knows me from birth since he was there the day I was born based on what he's told me. Izuku said, and the judge nodded her head. I have watched the memories that you brought to the front of your mind for the court officer. Can you tell me what your relationship is, or rather was, with the 3 children in the video? I want to confirm what was provided to me. She asked him, and Izuku explained who they were. She then asked how Hisashi has treated him so far, and if he was being good to him. I don't know how to define if he was doing a good, really, Izuku said, and she asked for a bit of detail on that. Well, I've only known pain and suffering, so anything outside of that is really better compared to that. Dad has taken me shopping for clothing, though. I am sure he got far more enjoyment out of dressing me up in all different clothing, Izuku said, and they could hear Hisashi chuckle under his hand. He's also made me food when I always had to make it myself in the past. He sat with me when I didn't want to be alone for the first therapy session since I've Izuku said as he stuttered on the last part. Izuku, it's fine if you can't say it. Do you want me to? Hisashi asked Izuku, who nodded his head. The judge looked at Hisashi in confusion. Your Honor, my son's mental health is really bad due to the treatment he's received from my hopefully soon ex-wife, if you grant it. That family drove him to the point that he has started self-harming himself. He likely has a range of mental issues that we will be dealing with as we discover them with the therapist, but self-harm is currently known and self-confidence issues as well, Hisashi said, and the judge's eyes darkened a bit at what she heard. She asked Izuku if he was comfortable with showing his wrists, and he showed her, and she confirmed what she saw and made her notes. Thank you, sweetie, she said to Izuku, who had a bright smile on for being thanked. The judge made more notes for a few minutes. Izuku, do you think you would ever want to see your mother or stepsister again in the future? She asked, and Hisashi knew why she asked this. It would determine how harsh the judge is on cutting any possible contact from Inko to Izuku, if she ever found Izuku. As it stands, no. I hate them. I did nothing wrong, and yet they treated me like that. I don't have plans to reconnect with them far as I am concerned since I have Dad to care for me now. The only thing I expect from them is for them to cause me pain, unlike with Dad, Izuku said, and the judge nodded her head. After a few more questions, the judge told Izuku he could return to Hisashi. Okay, thank you two for coming here today, the judge started off with and looked at Hisashi. As it stands, you have provided enough proof that your marriage should be ended. I normally would require you to attempt to get in contact with the other party with reasonable attempts to have both sides present to end a marriage, but due to the fact that the other side has caused harm to a child that is involved in this case, and said child has a hatred for the other party that I can confirm with my quirk, I cannot in good concise allow the other side to find the location of the child via the court's actions, stated the judge before looking at the lawyer for the government. If the government has no opposition, then I will grant a nullification of the marriage with Inko Yagi, formerly Inko Shimura, before she married the second man in Japan, even though she was married in the United States, as Inko Midoriya, the judge said as she looked at the government lawyer. The lawyer shook his head and said they had no objections to the court order for that. Next was the part about Izuku. Outside of the marriage which did produce a child, this court hereby issues the following in regards to the child Izuku. This court finds that Inko Yagi, formerly Inko Midoriya, formerly Inko Shimura, is unfit to care for the child involved in this case, Izuku. We find that all custody will be awarded to Hisashi Midoriya. No child support or any monetary compensation will be awarded since it would involve contacting said other parties involved which would endanger the life of the said child. This court also sees fit that a restraining order will be applied against Inko Yagi, formerly Inko Midoriya, formerly Inko Shimura, as well as Izumi Yagi. However, this court acknowledges that this restraining order has no effect outside of the United States of America, the judge stated, and looked at Hisashi's lawyer who accepted the terms and the government lawyer who accepted it as well. The judge then continued for a bit longer. This court also finds that Izuku is indeed a United States citizen even though he was born in Japan, which grants him Japanese citizenship. His father is an American citizen and Izuku is granted birthright citizenship alongside his Japanese citizenship, but this court requires the re-announcing of Izuku's Japanese citizenship to ensure that Japan's courts can't attempt to grant his custody back to Inko Midoriya in their jurisdiction in the event that he ever returns before he retreats the age of maturity in Japan, which is 18, the same as the United States age of adulthood. Is this agreeable to both parties? Asked the judge, and both sides agreed to it. This brought an end to the court case, and Izuku documents were verified and identification issues which would arrive at the Midoriya's home in a few weeks. Congratulations, Izuku, on being formally recognized by the government as Izuku Midoriya moving forward, stated the judge, and Izuku thanked her. Soon they left the courtroom and the government lawyer approached them. The identification papers will all arrive in 2 weeks or so at your home address. We have on file for you, Mr. Midoriya. The removal of his Japanese citizenship will be recognized by the United States, but we won't send it to Japan, which would alert them that he is here. We don't want All Might attempting to come here and starting an international incident over this, even though we would never agree to his demands since we saw what we did in the memories. He's also weakening as confirmed in the memories, so we see less value in agreeing to any of his requests that would harm Izuku, since he plans to be a hero in the future. The commission president sends his regards and can't wait to see your son in the future when you bring him by, stated the government lawyer. Izuku was shocked that the man knew about All Might's form even though he blocked that portion out about his being All Might. Hisashi saw Izuku's confusion and explained, "Remember, the commission president and a handful of people in the government are in the knowledgeable of my past, and my quirk. Means they know All Might's quirk and his true name. When those that know me saw the case related to me, they send a lawyer who they read in on me and everything that I've done, which included All Might. This means they know about your quirk since I've told them that you want to be a hero, remember?" Hisashi said, and Izuku nodded his head. "As such, you have more value to the government than All Might, who is going to retire. You also will be a hero in American, unlike him who is in Japan. This means that you will be defeating crime here and helping the government, unlike he is, since he's going to have to retire in the next decade or so due to his wounds. However, you will only grow more powerful, so they will want to establish good relations with you, which they have done via this, and making sure we have no issues with All Might or your mother," Hisashi said, and Izuku smiled at that and nodded his head. "That's good, I guess. It means that I will have an easier time becoming a hero if I don't have to worry about hiding the actual quirk from the government," Izuku said, and Hisashi nodded his head since that was true. America wasn't like Japan with all of the discrimination against so-called villainous quirks. America had a slightly higher quirkless rate at 10% as well, so it wasn't so unnormal either. The Midoriya's quirk would indeed cause some fear since it was a shocking quirk, but the government was strict on discrimination laws as well, so Izuku would just need to deal with some bullies that would dislike him for his quirk itself, but overall he wouldn't face issues of becoming a hero since the government likes the idea of him being one, since he would be a powerful one that they could call for special missions. They also likely will want him to become a special agent hero, Hisashi thought. The special agent program helped train powerful heroes and sent their agents out on harsher missions that normal heroes couldn't handle. Sometimes killing was required, sadly, which Hisashi didn't want Izuku doing, but even a normal hero must kill sometimes to save people. As such, there wasn't much difference except the frequency of hard missions and the possibility of having to kill being slightly higher due to the more difficult villains that they have to deal with that might need to be put down to ensure the public's safety. Anyway, that was a concern for the future as the Midoriyas soon headed home for the day since the court case took a few hours and both Midoriyas were hungry now. Third POV. It's been about 4 weeks since Izuku had run away from his mother's care. They did find out that he was reported missing and was being searched for as a witness in an important case via the Endeavor Agency. The missing person report was filed about 3 days after Izuku had run away, since he ran away Friday night, and he was gone all weekend and Monday as well. Izuku and Hisashi talked about it, and both found it funny that Toshinori and Inko had decided not to reveal their hero identities and his connection to them, but they likely were using the reasons of villains would hold him hostage as the reason not to reveal it. However, that made Izuku just dislike them even more since they weren't willing to risk it all to find him even though he ran away. Hisashi had noticed Izuku's anger towards them one day and had decided to sit Izuku down in the study room a bit and talk about his anger. "Izuku, I want to talk about your anger towards them," Hisashi stated, and Izuku tensed a bit up. "You're not going to tell me to forgive them, are you?" Izuku asked, looking at his father with concern. "No, God, no. I'm just concerned that you are going to hold on to the anger so much that it leads you to make foolish decisions in your life. I don't want you to repeat the same mistakes I did where I became a villain. Your dream is to be a hero, so you will need to manage your anger into other outlets instead of directing it all towards them for their actions. It's okay to hate them, but to be angered about it and let it affect your actions is another thing. Do you understand what I am getting at?" Hisashi asked, and Izuku sat there in silence for a few minutes. He looked at his father and nodded. "I think I get what you mean. If I let my anger control my actions, I may do something I would come to regret and that I can't take back. That I might stoop to their level and be no better than them," Izuku said, and Hisashi nodded his head, and was glad that Izuku had gotten the main message that he wanted to convey in having this conversation. "You are correct. Now, how was therapy yesterday?" Hisashi asked, and Izuku thought about it. "Better. They gave me some coping methods I can use and some breathing methods to help me if I have panic attacks. It's getting easier to understand everything they did to me and my emotions surrounding it," Izuku said. Hisashi was glad the therapy was starting to pay off, and the behaviors that Izuku showed, where he clung onto Hisashi almost at any moments, had lessened with time. There were still some moments where Izuku just wanted skin contact with Hisashi and sought it out, which he provided, but overall Izuku was able to act independently more and more. I also wanted to see if you wanted to come with me to the Enterprise. I've stayed home since I brought you to America, but I need to start making some appearances again at the business. I don't need to make an appearance every day, but it's easier to do some work in the office, and I also want to introduce you to the board members in person. I also know they would like to introduce you to their kids who would attend the same school as you, but they wouldn't be going to a hero school with you as far as I know, since most of them intend to just go into business. Hisashi stated, and Izuku thought it over and nodded his head. He kind of wanted to get used to being around kids his age again, since he would need to be social once again. Over the past week and a half, both of them have been starting Izuku's physical and quirk training in the gym and combat training room. The physical war aimed at making Izuku's body lean and compact, since it fit his body type more like Hisashi's. They also started training Izuku's abilities to copy, steal, give, and combine quirks. Hisashi, being Hisashi, was the perfect person to train Izuku, since Izuku could use a mountain load of quirks that Hisashi had on hand. Izuku could also learn to take the quirks, give them back, take multiple and combine them, break them apart again, and copy some quirks as well, and destroy them if he didn't want them. Hisashi made Izuku take certain quirks that he was required to keep. The quirks that Izuku currently had. Advanced All-for-One Birth Quirk. This allows the user to copy, take, give, and combine quirks. Currently, there is no limit to the number of quirks that the user can hold. It takes about 1 minute to copy a quirk with physical contact. Other actions can be done within seconds. Hyper Regeneration. This allows the user to use stamina to regeneration their body and wounds. Stamina Booster. The user's stamina is recuperated at x2 their natural body rate. Familiar Telepath. This allows the user to send messages to people that he considers close to or who he considers family. Geolocation. This allows the user to acquire the general location within 100 feet of a person that they are thinking of. These quirks were the required ones that Hisashi wanted Izuku to never get rid of for any reason. Then there were some that didn't require explaining, like the regeneration and stamina booster. The familiar telepath was so he and Izuku could keep in contact with each other if they were separated, or if Izuku was being attacked by anyone, since Hisashi did have a special permit license, just so the government didn't have to deal with him using his quirk to defend himself or against others like criminals if he wanted to take a criminal's quirk. He was forbidden from taking random citizens' quirks, though, and was required to report any new quirk he gained, which Hisashi agreed with since they were so easygoing with him. American laws were a bit loose on quirk usage for self-defense, but you still couldn't freely use them every second of the day. As such, if Izuku was in trouble, then Hisashi could go help him. The geolocation allowed Izuku to find his father's or anyone else's location if he had a mental image of them in his mind. It also allowed him to find his own location, which he could then send via familiar telepath to Hisashi, who could teleport himself to Izuku. Izuku didn't take the teleportation quirk since it was a bit gross in his views. It made sludge come out of his mouth and teleport then. Hisashi told him he got a copy of it via an old doctor friend that he no longer is in contact with. Izuku did copy some quirks from his father to build his own quirk set as his father has. Izuku didn't think he wanted to be a highly publicized daylight hero and would likely work more at night. As such, Izuku started to build his quirk set to work around the idea of working at night or a shadow team. The first quirk of 200 years worth of quirks that he found in his father's arsenal was a quirk called Crow. Crow. This allows the user to communicate and order crows to do his bidding. Izuku could also connect his mind to the crows and see through their eyes. Though if the crows don't like him, then they can break free of his control through sheer willpower, though it's unlikely of it working. Knowledge. The user absorbs the knowledge of things once they come in contact with it. i.e. if they touch an apple, they know where it was grown from and what type of apple it is. Shadow Master Combined Quirk. Pitch Black and Shadow Minion. This allows the user to materialize any shadows with varying strength and form it to meet their needs. The user could make items like whips or weapons, clones made of shadows, wings out of shadows, or anything else that their mind can imagine. The user can even travel via the shadows since he is one with the shadows. Pitch Black. This allows the user to control shadows, and the darker the shadows under control, the stronger they are. Shadow Minion. The user is able to control their personal shadow and make it materialize as a physical form. Shock absorption. This allows the user to take kinetic energy and absorb it into his body and use it to boost their own strength. Velocity. The user can steal the kinetic energy from people and objects in motion to gain more speed while slowing the person or object down due to the stolen energy. Double strength booster grants the user of the quirk a doubling effect of their natural strength. The stronger the individual's body is, the stronger the doubling effect is of their strength. Color changer. This quirk allows the user to change the color of any hair on his body and allows him to change the color of his eyes as well. As such, Izuku had 9 quirks that he purposely wanted and then 10 with his birth quirk. Then once you had the 4 required quirks of his father, he would 14 quirks total to start out with. Izuku knew he would increase his quirks over time and wouldn't need to worry about not having a certain quirk to fit his needs, as he was sure he would meet people that he would copy from over time, and the copying doesn't cause any pain at all, so people wouldn't even know if he copied them except for him hanging onto them for a minute or so. Izuku has gotten good, but they so far found that he wasn't really able to decrease the copy time that he was required to go through so far. They would keep training it to see if it would decrease in the future, but it looked like it wouldn't as it stood. Anyway, outside of all of those things, it was now time for Izuku and Hisashi to head off to Midoriya Enterprises and for Izuku to be introduced to the children of the board members so Izuku could start getting reintroduced to children around the same age as him. Izuku would also be attending the next school year in about a few months once it started, but Hisashi wasn't concerned about Izuku's education level since he was already at a high school level. Izuku's already that far ahead due to not spending any time with friends or really playing outside due to bullies. As such, he spent his time studying in his room and improving his education in hopes that his parents would notice his intelligence, but they never did. As such, even though Izuku was still in elementary school, he was far ahead of everyone else, and by the time he started high school, he would likely be at the college level. Hisashi was debating on having Izuku just take a placement test so Izuku could focus on training and just interact with people his age at the business or out in public. I guess I will just need to talk to Izuku about it since I don't want to force him to spend all day at school and be bored. Hisashi thought as he focused on driving to the company headquarters location, which was only 30 minutes or so from the house, which was a good thing for them to be honest. Third POV. Soon the 2 Midoriyas arrived at the company. Izuku was in a little suit that just made him look adorable in Hisashi's opinion. Izuku rolled his eyes at his father's look. I can imagine him thinking about buying a large amount of clothing to dress me up in again. You would think he is a woman with the amount of love he has with dressing me up in all different types of clothing, Izuku thought as he followed his dad into the building slightly behind him. Izuku decided he wanted to explore the place, and he already had an ID pass that would get him into any room he wanted in this place, since he was inheriting it anyway, so Hisashi saw no need for Izuku to be restricted from any rooms. Also, the other children from the board members wouldn't be around until the later part of the day since they were all at school. Izuku sent a mental message to his father. Dad, I'm going to explore the building since I don't want to sit in your office all day. I also want to get used to the building layout. Izuku sent the message via the mental quirk and Hisashi sent a message back approving of his decision. As such, Izuku split away from his father right in the lobby and started his exploration. As such, no one knew in the building that Izuku was Izuku Midoriya, aka son of Hisashi Midoriya. Midoriya Enterprise Headquarters. Overall, the building was a unique style as it also had a lot of underground sections with most of the offices above ground with any testing rooms, quirk rooms, experiments, or anything else that they want to keep from competitors' eyes. Izuku had separated early from his father, so he honestly wanted to test the security of the building and see how far he could get inside without someone questioning him. As such, once he saw his father go up the elevator to his office, Izuku decided to slip right next to some workers and followed them into another elevator without them noticing him. He also hid his badge so no one would see it. The workers in the elevator did not notice him in the elevator with them, and Izuku rolled his eyes. Soon they came to a floor filled with desks, and Izuku followed the workers out of the elevator and into the room. Still, no one noticed Izuku or tried to stop him. After about 5 minutes of walking around, Hisashi had come to the floor since he knew Izuku was on it, and he wanted to see if anyone noticed his son yet. As Hisashi walked through the floor, all of the single women were gushing about how Hisashi looked and dreaming of marrying him since they believed he was single. Well, he is single now, but do they really think I would accept some random women as my new mother? That Izuku thought as he rolled his eyes at all of the women acting like they were acting. Izuku decided to slip into the elevator and go to a different floor. He sent his father a message about playing a game of hide and seek where Izuku goes to all the different floors and see if a worker notices him and what they do since it was not common for random children to be in the building. Hisashi agreed since he was interested as well. As Izuku made his way through the various floors, he was noticed by several people, but no one actually stopped him even though he had no visible badge on him. It got to the point that Izuku was getting a bit annoyed with no one stopping him to at least check if he was a son of an employee. He even walked through the cafeteria area, where he was completely visible for everyone to see at one point. He even got food from the line and sat down to eat. He did get a lot of looks, but no one asked him who he was or asked about his badge that was nowhere to be seen. Even Hisashi was starting to get a bit annoyed with his employees. It was one thing if they didn't stop Izuku, but it was an entirely different thing to not report a random individual being in the building without a badge. Izuku had gone to several floors where he could have gotten into desks where they were planning new product lines for several different subsidiary businesses. There was a reason that Midoriya Enterprise was the parent company to all of these other businesses. They sent out new ideas and concepts to the subsidiary companies who furthered them along, and the parent company would watch out for issues or fix things when things went wrong. Hisashi had accessed the reports and call log to the security department, and they haven't received anything since Izuku had entered the building, and that was 2 hours ago. If Izuku had been a spy from another company, they could have lost a lot of data. Izuku had even taken things out of desks as well and swiped flash drives from desks which he didn't even know what was in them either. That fact had pissed Hisashi off the most. His father kept going on to the different floors as well, so people knew he was in the building. Even if he wasn't, they should still be on top of basic protocols. If they see a random person in the building, even the board member children wear badges to enter the building and move around. The only people that don't are Hisashi and the board members themselves, so it's a limited group that doesn't do it, and they are known. This is the first time Izuku has been in the building, though at the 3rd hour mark an incident had happened. As Izuku walked past one woman who was talking about marrying Hisashi Midoriya, Izuku couldn't keep his mouth shut and had made a comment about the woman wanting to be a homewrecker. They didn't need to know he was recently divorced, and Izuku wasn't going to let just any woman or man, if his father went that way, get into his home. He already had one horrible mother figure, and if his father could go 200 years with only one woman, then he could go anywhere 200 without another one. That wasn't actually good though. This comment from Izuku earned looks from the woman and comments from her. She said Izuku should keep his mouth shut since he didn't understand adult things, and that he would when he was older. Whatever you say, doubtful he would go for you when you have a rotten personality, Izuku commented and turned to walk away when the woman grabbed him by the collar and pulled him backward. This caught the attention of other workers who had just noticed Izuku being in the office. "Why let go of me, you crazy woman?" Izuku shouted at her and struggled to get free. This is when things turned as the woman got fed up with Izuku. "It seems your parents didn't teach you manners," she said as she turned around and slapped Izuku across the face, earning gasps from everyone. Several male workers moved in and pulled the woman off Izuku and pulled him away from her. At that point, Izuku was in shock and was having flashbacks to being bullied and neglected. 3, 2, 1, cue tears and screaming. "Sniffle, sniffle, Papa!" Izuku cried out and broke down into tears. The woman just screamed for him to shut up since she realized that this wasn't looking good for her, as her coworkers were calling security to deal with the situation. But sadly for her, she chose the wrong kid. "Who the hell made my son cry?" Hisashi yelled out, and everyone paled when they heard his voice and saw him running over. When he arrived, Izuku ran to him and grabbed onto his leg, and that is when he saw the handprint on Izuku's face from being slapped. "Who the F dared to harm my child?" Hisashi screamed out, and everyone pointed to the woman that did it. Security arrived, and Hisashi told them to detain the woman and call the police to arrest her for harming a child. The woman paled at that and tried to defend herself and make up lies of Izuku assaulting her. "You think I am stupid? There are security cameras I can check, so it's pointless for you to lie to me," Hisashi said as he just pulled the video up showing what happened. Soon the police arrived after about 10 minutes, and had arrested the woman. Hisashi had ended up calming Izuku down, and he ended up falling asleep at the sound of Hisashi's heartbeat. Hisashi called a company-wide employee meeting in the massive auditorium room where they do company-wide meetings such as these or large product launches to the public where they invite investors and other people to see the reveal of new product lines. Within 30 minutes, all of the employees, for the most part, had all gathered in the auditorium. They all wondered what the meeting was about since there was nothing scheduled today, but the ones on the floor where the incident happened knew why they got called. The board of directors also knew why the meeting was called. They were honestly pissed. They were pissed about Izuku getting hurt and the fact that so much data could have been stolen by any random person that walked into the building since no one had called security about a random individual without a badge. Good afternoon, or I would say that if I wasn't so pissed, Hisashi started out and ever flinched a bit at his tone. So I want to talk about multiple things, but I'm sure you are all wondering about the kid that is sleeping behind me who looks adorable with his sleeping face. Well, hands off since that is my son, though one woman today decided that assaulting my son was an acceptable action. Even if he wasn't my son, I accept none of you to harm a child because if I find out about it, you can consider your job here gone. Hisashi stated, and everyone was in shock about hearing that their boss had having a son. They all thought he never had a family, but they just got proven wrong. They were also scared that someone had dared to hurt sad boss's child. They all prayed for that foolish woman's soul to survive Hisashi Midoriya's wrath. So several things with my son. Yes, he will inherit this company, so you should treat any he says as if it was something from me. I will be teaching him how to operate the business, but he's honestly very smart and had my brains, so it won't be long before he gets fully involved after a few more years of growing up. Don't be surprised if he comes in with white hair and white eyes like me since he changes them via a quirk user we know all the time to match me. Don't ask about the mother. Hisashi said, laying some ground rules for everyone. They all nodded their heads as they listened in. Then it was time for the more serious topic as Hisashi started to plug flash drives into the laptop he had on the stage that was connected to a projector behind him. He had 2 screens, so he could make sure he wanted to show anything before he actually showed it. Now, the next topic. If you see someone without a badge and they are not me, the board members, and my son moving forward, then what does the company police state? Anyone? Hisashi asked, and a person yelled out to call security. Hisashi nodded his head. Indeed, to that person that said called security. It's one thing to ask a person where their badge is, but really you should call security for them to deal with it. The problem with that is my son has been in the building for 3 hours, and until today none of you knew of him. He did not wear a badge the entire time. Once he moved, pasted the lobby. So, 3 hours worth of people seeing him, and no one called security. Do you know how big of a security risk that is? Hisashi asked and no one answered, but Hisashi could see it in a lot of their eyes that they understood. Hisashi started to display documents off the flash drives. My son at my request snagged a lot of sensitive data from desks. He had a decent amount of information here that could cost us about $1 billion in damages if this got into our competing company's hands. That is how big of an issue this is. If you see someone without a badge, then call security at once. Stop what you are doing and call security, or have someone near you do it if you are on a call with someone else already. Hisashi said, and everyone shouted out that they understood. After talking about some other things and how he planned to make some security changes moving forward to better help protect the building, like installing an alarm system that would go off if someone entered past a certain point without a badge on, but that people should still call if they don't see a badge present just to be safe if it isn't a board member, Izuku Midoriya, or himself. Hisashi then dismissed everyone to return to work, and Hisashi picked Izuku up, which made some people smile at seeing their normally cold stone boss being sweet and happy with his son. Third POV. Hisashi had grabbed Izuku and taken him upstairs to his office. The board members all came into his office, and their children were with them as well since they were already out of school. The kids asked if Izuku was all right, and Hisashi nodded his head and spoke. He will be. Getting attacked by an older woman likely caused some memories to resurface of his upbringing. His mother, though never laid a hand on him, did not take care of him. She neglected him and his stepsister physically and verbally bullied him to extreme levels. Hisashi stated, and the kids flinched back a bit and then looked at Izuku with a bit of sympathy. They asked if they could help in any way, and Hisashi said to just be friends with Izuku, which they accepted to do. After about 10 minutes of sleeping, Izuku woke up to see everyone in the room with him. Well, hello everyone that I have no idea who you are, but I will assume you are the board members and their children, Izuku stated as he rubbed his eyes a bit and moved to sit next to Hisashi. Everyone chuckled a bit at Izuku's statement since it was right, but it was just funny in how he phrased it. Hisashi, these are the board members for the parent company. Through them, I do a lot of the work. Though do note that this isn't a publicly traded company, and I own 100% of it. I've never taken it private, nor intend to ever. I'm not required to have a board of directors, but it's nice to have people that I trust to throw the work to who I know will ensure it gets done. I can also go to them for their opinions on things, or leave them in charge to run the business. For example, when I had that accident at your birth that forced me out of your life, they took over and ran until I recovered. As such, if you ever need help in the future when you run the company, then just lean on them. Hisashi said, and Izuku nodded his head and greeted them all. Izuku took all of their names in, but focused mostly on the two senior members since they knew everything about his father's past and quirk. As such, they would be the ones that he deals with almost all of the time since he knew he could trust them with anything. The first man was called Chris Kristen, and he was of Japanese descent, but had an American mother. He did spend years in Japan, but moved to America with his mother after the death of his father and hasn't returned since unless it was for business. Izuku also was told by his father that the two senior members both have a minor slow-aging quirk since Hisashi liked to keep trusted allies close at hand for as long as possible. The second senior board member was of American descent, and his name was Jared Crete. He also had the anti-aging quirk as well. Both men were in their 60s, but Jared had become a close member of Hisashi's inner circle when he was a bit younger than Chris Kristen. As such, Jared looks much younger, even though he is roughly the same age as Chris Kristen. After talking to them for a bit longer and being introduced to the children of the board members, it was almost time for the day to come to an end. Hisashi had decided to pull Izuku off to the side for a private conversation. Son, I wanted to talk about your education. As it stands, you currently have an education level of a high school student. As such, I've been debating whether or not to actually send you to school when the new school year starts since you would be more or less bored. You would also only be going for the social aspect which we could arrange for you to get via other means. I would like your thoughts on this since you are young, but you are mature due to your experiences. Hisashi stated, and Izuku nodded his head and thought it over. In all honesty, Izuku did not want to go to school to learn the things he already knew about. As he thought it over, he decided to ask some questions. If I didn't go, what would I do instead? Izuku asked, and Hisashi nodded his head and was glad his son asked the important questions. You first would need to take a placement exam to qualify to not go after all. Wherever your education level lands, then that is where you will start at. If it lands in the last year of high school, then you will learn the material you need to graduate and take another placement exam to test out of school. Once that happens, I want you to start college-level education early and take online classes. Hisashi said, and then took some water and drank some of it before talking again. Depending on how all of that goes, we would start far heavier in your quirk and physical training more than we already are since I know you want to be a hero. Unlike Japan, America allows you to be approved to take their hero exam if you have sponsors that are willing to pay for the cost of the exam outside of the exams that are given to the hero schools. As such, you don't need to attend a hero school to receive your license. There is also a special program that I don't want to talk about right now, but I am sure the commission will want to ask you to join. I would like to delay that until you are 12 at minimum. Hisashi said, and Izuku thought it over. It sounded like a good deal, and he wanted to go about that route. I want to do that. Let's have me take the placement exam and then go from there. I could also start learning more about the things I will need to operate the business, and I can take over some functions from you to help integrate myself in the long term, since we are both not likely going to die for centuries since our quirks and all. I'm going to hold off on taking the anti-aging one until I'm close to 14, so I can obtain a nice young look, but still look a bit older than what I am right now, Izuku said as he smiled. Hisashi shook his head. Dear God, my child is going to be a lady killer, Hisashi thought as he rubbed Izuku's head. Soon they decided to head back to the house and get started on setting up the placement exam. Izuku had said goodbye to the children of the board members and told them he would speak to them another time. Overall, Izuku didn't know how to feel about those kids. They were nice and all, but Izuku knew they were wanting to become friends with Izuku due to his father and their parents. Izuku wanted to befriend people on his own and decided he would see if he could have good luck at doing it with other people out in the city every so often. No one really knew about Izuku being Hisashi's son, so Izuku wouldn't have anyone really trying to befriend him just over that, and his newfound wealth via his father. Soon though they arrived home to find the family lawyer Seth King waiting for them. "Why hello, Seth. What brings you here since I don't remember us having a meeting scheduled?" Hisashi asked. Seth nodded his head and confirmed that they didn't. "Indeed, I came here about your will and estate documents. How we had your documents set up is that in the somehow astronomical misfortune that you die is that Izuku gets everything via a series of trusts and other methods," Seth stated, and Hisashi nodded his head knowing this, but didn't see an issue. "Well, the issue you might be missing is that Inko is named in the documents as well since we assumed she was a fit parent and everything. She was made the one managing the trust with the board's help. We need to remove any mention of her and just give Izuku full control of everything. Again, I don't see you dying or anything with your quirks, but you pay me for these types of things to make sure there are no bumps in the road that we could have foreseen," Seth stated, and Hisashi now understood why this needed to happen. "Okay, let's go in the house and change everything up. I'm assuming you have everything already made?" Hisashi asked and received a confirmation. "Also, Izuku's citizenship paperwork and everything else has arrived. I grabbed them out of your mailbox and opened them. I've reviewed them and everything is in good order, so there are no issues there," Seth stated, and Hisashi thanked him. Soon they both sat down, and Izuku just went to the gym and started to work out a bit. Over the past few weeks, his body has gotten healthier due to the better food and proper diet he has been eating. As such, Izuku could see a massive change in his body form since he went from a skinny stick kid to a leaner, and with some excess fat on him, since he has been taking in more food than he has burned off, which was good for him to have a healthy body and weight. Now, it was time to start getting a proper workout to increase his strength and speed. After working out for about an hour, he heard his father call for him, so Izuku headed upstairs after wiping down with a towel. "Ya dad?" Izuku asked, and Hisashi waved him over. "Sign these documents. They are confirming you as my sole heir to everything I own. Though you will never need any of these documents since we will live for centuries, while unlike All Might finds me somehow and attacks again," Hisashi said with a shrug, but Izuku didn't find that comment funny and had a tear in his eye. All Might won't take you away, right?" Izuku said with a sniffle, and Seth turned to Hisashi with the look on his face that said, "You just done messed up, man." Hisashi realized he screwed up as well as he pulled Izuku into a hug and calmed him down. No. He won't even. If he finds me here in America, he can't do anything to me since I'm not a wanted criminal in America. I also got the government at my back to help me, unlike in Japan," Hisashi stated. Izuku nodded his head, and soon they broke apart, and Izuku went to take a shower since he was dirty from working out. Third POV. Izuku was currently running in Central Park as he had taken to running around all of the paths that are made around the park. It's also reasonably safe as well since there is a police precinct made on the park itself due to how high traffic the park is. Also, there are a handful of heroes that have patrol routes through the park. As such, Central Park is a safe place for civilians to roam around at without fear of being attacked. It has also been about half a year since Izuku has been with his father. Many things have changed in Izuku's life. One example of the changes is that Izuku did sit for his placement exam, had passed his high school education, and everything below. As such, Izuku was now starting his college-level education and was working on his bachelor's degree in quirk science. Izuku wanted to get a PhD in quirk science, but he knew it would take time, which he honestly had, so Izuku didn't bother rushing his college-level education, but he didn't slack off in it either. Izuku's therapy sessions have also been moved recently from twice a week to twice a month since the therapist deemed him stable enough. Izuku still had anger and resentment towards his previous family, but he was getting better at not holding onto the said anger anymore. Hisashi wasn't worried that Izuku would turn down the same path that he himself had taken 200 years ago. The doctors were also giving Izuku a clean bill of health with his improved diet and body weight. Izuku now was far more lean and compact, but he was starting to grow in height at a fast pace since he was actually having an actual diet that he needed to grow instead of being starved of the resources his body needed like in the past. As Izuku was running through the park, he heard a scream on his return journey towards his home. He followed the sound and had found a group of children surrounding two smaller children on the ground. Izuku decided against calling the police since it might be them just playing rough, and it was likely something he could just get involved in and scare them off by threatening to call the police. Izuku listened in and heard the main group of children picking on the two children on the ground. They were talking about how the two needed to stop coming to their territory, which was ironic in Izuku's opinion since the land they were on was owned by Hisashi Midoriya, though it was still open to public use. After listening in a bit more, and before one of the bigger kids could throw a punch, Izuku stepped in and got involved. "What do you think you were doing?" asked what kid. Izuku just rolled his eyes at them, which just annoyed them. They started talking about how Izuku shouldn't interfere in their matters, and that it was their space that they didn't want other children coming to. Izuku scoffed. "First, this is open to the public to use, but privately owned land that you are standing on currently. So it's not yours at all to decide who can come and go. Second, you are picking on them for what? Just being here? That is pathetic, especially for the fact that you stated you wanted to be heroes and all from what I heard about. So listen well and clean your ears out. You won't try and stop people from coming here in the future, nor will you harm others, or I will call the police on you and report you. It would be quite hard for you if you wanted to become heroes with you assaulting people now," Izuku said with a smirk on his face, and a lot of the children standing in front of him flinched back at the threat of calling the police, but one main boy scoffed at Izuku and decided to push the issue. "I can do what I wish. My father is a deputy commissioner in the police force. The police won't do anything to me since they won't risk losing their jobs," stated the bully. Izuku asked him what his father's name was, and the boy willing gave it. Izuku pulled his phone and looked it up. Izuku nodded his head and confirmed that the name was listed as a deputy commissioner. "What's your name then, and all of yours?" Izuku asked the boys, and they stupidly gave them Izuku, then called Seth King up, and after a few rings, he answered. "Hello, Seth. Yes, I am doing fine. I have some names for you." "Yes, they are," Izuku stated as he gave the names. Everyone was confused why he was giving someone their names. "Yes. The reason I gave you them is that I want you to file paperwork banning them from the land that we own in Central Park. Also, I want you to look into their families and bring the issue up with the mayor of the city and the police commissioner, since the first name I gave you claims to be the son of a deputy commissioner and is using his father's position to threaten people and most likely threaten police officers," Izuku stated, and after being silent for a few minutes he nodded his head. Soon the phone call ended and Izuku ended the call. They were all silent as they looked at him. "So good news, or rather bad news for you. Your family will soon receive notices stating that you are banned from entering this section of the park since it's private property. 2. An investigation will be started to look into your threatening of people with your father's position, and if he had knowledge of you doing it, which might cost him his job. All of you other boys will also receive notices banning you from this section of the park as well. Any questions?" Izuku stated with a kind smile, which wasn't so kind since he was just bashing them. They were all stunned when the main boy spoke up asking who the hell he was. Izuku just smiled widely at this since his confidence since being with his father has skyrocketed. "I am Izuku Midoriya, and you are on my family's land," Izuku stated with a grin. The boys all ran away after he said that, but Izuku rolled his eyes since that wasn't going to stop anything that was set in motion. Izuku then turned around and looked at the two kids that were being picked on. Izuku though froze when he was about to speak. "Cute," he thought as he laid eyes on the girl in front of him. The girl had crimson red hair with 2 ponytails. Soon he snapped out of his thoughts and started speaking. "Are you both all right?" Izuku asked the girl and her friend who had brown hair, but didn't catch Izuku's attention as the crimson hair girl did. "We're fine. Thank you though for saving us," the red-haired girl said with a smile. The other girl thanked Izuku as well before they all started to talk. Izuku didn't pay much attention to the other girl because his attention was focused on the crimson-haired girl who he learned was named Stella Vermilion. He asked if they lived in the city, and the brown-haired girl said no, while Stella said that her family had just moved to the city since their family business was expanding and she was still figuring everything out. "If you want, I can help you around the city. I've only been here 6 months, but it's better than nothing, right?" Izuku suggested, and the brown-haired girl rolled her eyes at Izuku's attempt to flirt, or what she thought was him flirty. The girl decided to leave since she had only met Stella when they got bullied, and said she had to go, which just left the two of them. "Well, I'll accept your offer. Shall we go explore?" she asked, and Izuku nodded his head as they left the area they were in, and Izuku took her to the things around the Central Park. These things included the small zoo at the park or the art museum. Then they stopped at the playground that was near the small amusement park that was seasonal. This little amusement park is seasonal. It changes with the season, so during winter they have ice skating. I didn't do it when I first came to New York since I had things that were far more important to handle, Izuku said as they walked past it and into the playground. Stella thanked Izuku for showing her around the park and asked if he would show her around the city on another day, and Izuku agreed. They even swapped numbers as they sat down in the park. Izuku decided to get to know her a bit more than the general questions that they had talked about while walking. So you said your family's business had expanded and you just recently moved here. What does your family do and where did you guys expand from? Izuku asked her as they sat down. She looked at him and shrugged a bit. I don't involve myself that much into it. I know I will inherit the business in the future, but that won't be until I'm older. Right now my father wants me to enjoy life, and I also plan to be a hero. As well, I can tell you that we did expand from France though. The family business centers around many different things, and I know only some of them. I do know we do some work in luxury brands that we export out of France. We had recently made a deal with a major company here in New York that is an international company, but does most of their business in the United States, but I don't remember the name since I wasn't involved in anything. I just came along for the ride, Stella stated, and Izuku nodded his head. I wonder if it's with my father's business, Izuku thought. Then he asked her if she missed any of her friends back in France. Not really, most of them were my friends due to my parents' businesses. I'm hoping to make friends here in America, which it seems I've made one, she said, as she smiled at Izuku. That's an arrow to my heart, Izuku thought, and he cursed himself for having a crush on a girl he just met. Soon it was starting to get darker out when Stella's phone rang. She pulled her phone out, and it read father on it. She answered it, and Izuku could hear the other side due to how close they were sitting. Ah, hello, Papa, she stated, and Izuku heard the other side asked where she was since she hasn't come home yet. I am currently at the playground in the Central Park. I ran into a problem with some bullies, but this boy came and saved me, and he showed me around the park and took me to a lot of the sights in the park, Stella stated, and she kept nodding her head to her father's statements. Okay, I'll be waiting, Stella said, and ended the call. She then turned to Izuku and asked if he would mind waiting until her father came and picked her up. Izuku nodded her head and agreed to wait. After about 10 minutes, a male's voice was heard from behind them as they were playing on the swings. Izuku and Stella turned around and saw what Izuku assumed was her father due to the red-crimson hair that they both shared. Overall, the male was quite bulky, not all might bulky, but definitely extremely fit. There you are, sweetie, the man said as he hugged his daughter. He then saw Izuku, who was standing up now. The man introduced himself to Izuku. Hello, young man. I am Francis Vermillion. I want to thank you for helping my daughter earlier today with the bullies. What is your name, by the way? Francis asked Izuku. It's Izuku, sir, Izuku said, not saying his last name, and the man noticed, but didn't say anything about it. Well, young man, I and my daughter need to go for today, he said, and Stella came over before they left. Icky, I'll text you later since we traded numbers. Remember, you promised to show me to other places in the city, so you better keep the promise, Stella said, and Izuku raised an eyebrow. Icky? He asked, and she nodded her head. Yup, you're Icky from now on, she said as she turned around and pulled her father away. Izuku just shook his head at her antics and the new name. Ironically, they would see each other sooner than they thought. Third POV. Izuku and Stella talked over text messages a lot for the next month and a half. They couldn't meet up in person since both of them had gotten busy with their parents. Stella's family was finishing everything they needed to finalize their move to America and were finishing opening their American headquarters, while Izuku and Hisashi had been training non-stop and adapting Izuku into the business environment. Hisashi wanted Izuku to get his feet wet with learning the reports and everything, so Izuku would be given a stack of documents to read, and Hisashi would question him on different things that he should have noticed in the documents. Izuku was also getting much better in his training as well, and had taken a few more quirks to add into his stockpile. Quirk list. Advanced all-for-one birth quirk. This allows the user to copy, take, give, and combine quirks. Currently, there is no limit to the number of quirks that the user can hold. It takes about 1 minute to copy a quirk with physical contact. Other actions can be done within seconds. Hyper regeneration. This allows the user to use stamina to regeneration their body and wounds. Stamina booster. The user's stamina is recuperated at x2 their natural body rate. Familiar telepath. This allows the user to send messages to people that he considers close to or who he considers family. Geolocation. This allows the user to acquire the general location within 100 feet of a person that they are thinking of. Crow. This allows the user to communicate and order crows to do his bidding. Izuku could also connect his mind to the crows and see through their eyes. Though if the crows don't like him, then they can break free of his control through sheer willpower, though it's unlikely of it working. Knowledge. The user absorbs the knowledge of things once they come in contact with it. If they touch an apple, they know where it was grown from and what type of apple it is. Shadow Master combined quirk. Pitch Black and Shadow Minion. This allows the user to materialize any shadows with varying strength and form it to meet their needs. The user could make items like whips or weapons, clones made of shadows, wings out of shadows, or anything else that their mind can imagine. The user can even travel via the shadows since he is one with the shadows. Pitch Black. This allows the user to control shadows, and the darker the shadows under control, the stronger they are. Shadow Minion. The user is able to control their personal shadow and make it materialize as a physical form. Shock Absorption. This allows the user to take kinetic energy and absorb it into his body and use it to boost their own strength. Velocity. The user can steal the kinetic energy from people and objects in motion to gain more speed while slowing the person or object down due to the stolen energy. Double Strength Booster grants the user of the quirk a doubling effect of their natural strength. The stronger the individual's body is, the stronger the doubling effect is of their strength. Color Changer. This quirk allows the user to change the color of any hair on his body and allows him to change the color of his eyes as well. New quirks that Izuku added to his stockpile. Warrior Replication. This allows the user to learn the fighting styles of others at a faster pace and adapt the fighting styles into one overall compact and efficient. Fighting Style. This provides an overall edge in battle if the user engages in close quarters combat. Null. This allows the user to negate the effects of other quirks upon himself if he decides to have it active. A lie detector quirk wouldn't work on him, and Ring is true if he had it active. Pain Negation. This allows the user to lower the amount of pain they feel from injuries and allows them to push through during a battle. It can be turned on and off at the will of the user, so they can make sure they aren't missing a wound that needs to be taken care of. Though the Hyper Regeneration takes care of Izuku's wounds. Now, outside of the training and everything else that has been going on, Izuku had learned that his father had requested him to come to a meeting with him. The meeting was with a newer business partner, but they were still a well-established company that was from France. This company has expanded into the American market, and Midoriya Enterprise was helping the company out since it would give them access to a new business segment that they haven't done much in. The France company was mainly focused on more luxurious brands such as clothing, perfumes, high-end food establishments, and some other things that Midoriya Enterprises didn't get involved much in as it currently stood. Hisashi, however, wanted to invest more into these segments since Midoriya Enterprise had their hands in almost anything and everything, and this would present another chance at expanding their limited influence in those segments to be more influential since they would have some ownership in the American segments that the French company would open. It would also open the door into the other company's businesses if Hisashi played his cards right. Izuku got dressed in his more business attire outfit and waited for his father in the living room of their home. Today he decided to sport his white hair and white eyes to match his father. In this state, he looked more or less like a miniature version of his father, and Izuku always enjoyed that fact. Hisashi accepted it for several reasons. 1. Hisashi wanted Izuku to feel comfortable with his own looks. 2. Based on the words of the therapist, is that Izuku suffers from some self-hatred when he sees his green hair and green eyes since it reminds him of Inko Yagi. As such, the therapist told Hisashi to always accept what Izuku might change his hair and eye color to on the fly since it shows that Izuku is having a day down in regards to his mental health. Though Hisashi was told that Izuku would likely mellow out onto a permanent hair color moving forward in the future once he lets go of his anger fully for the most part. The therapist believes that Izuku will likely settle on white hair and white eyes due to its connection to Inko. Hisashi and Izuku soon made it to the office and went to Hisashi's office. The meeting would be in the next hour or so. So, I've given you most of the information regards to the meeting. The main reason I needed you was because the owners of the business have a daughter that will lead the business in the future, but isn't really involved at the moment until she's older. I just need you to entertain her for an hour or two since she is the same age as you. Okay, Hisashi asked. Izuku nodded his head and was willing to help. Soon, his phone vibrated, and he saw it was from Stella. She had told him that her parents had dragged her to a meeting for the business since they wanted her to meet the other side and start getting used to doing things like that. Izuku wished her luck, and she just sent a smiley face back. Hisashi saw the texting and made a joke about Izuku having a crush, which caused Izuku to almost drop his phone and then glare up at his father. Stop being an embarrassing dad, Izuku pouted at his father, who just kept teasing him. Soon it was time for the meeting, and Izuku followed his father into the meeting room to find one Francis Vermilion and a woman who looked like an older version of Stella. Izuku looked around the room and found the person he hoped to be in the room when he saw Francis. Indeed, just sitting in a chair behind the adults was one Stella Vermilion. Izuku wanted to dart over, but knew it would be rude since they were in a business setting. Though Hisashi recognized the girl based on Izuku's description and look at his son, who was visibly brighter and having a hard time staying still. Hisashi smiled a bit and then spoke to the other party in the room. Hello, Francis. It's good to see you again since the last time. I'm assuming this is your wife you told me about? Hisashi asked as he shook hands with Francis. Indeed, this is my wife Astrea Vermilion, and behind us is our daughter Stella Vermilion, Francis stated as he introduced his wife and daughter. Hisashi introduced himself and then waved his son over. Izuku then walked up and waved at Stella, who looked confused. You forgot about me? Izuku said with a small sad smile. Hisashi rolled his eyes since his son forgot that he changed his hair and eye color. Even though you look similar, you still have a large difference between the two since it creates two different feelings from you. Hisashi said. Son, you forgot you changed your hair and eye color, Hisashi said, and Izuku rubbed the back of his head. Sorry. Hello everyone, I'm Izuku Midoriya. Stella imagines me with green hair and green eyes. Izuku said, and Stella's eyes widened, and then she hugged Izuku, who started to stutter. Hisashi just chuckled a bit with the other parents. Why did you change your hair and eye color? I kind of liked how you looked before, she said, and Izuku snapped back to the color green without even really thinking about it, which shocked the Vermilions. That's cool, is that your quirk? She asked, and Izuku rubbed his head and shook his head. Think of my quirk on the lines of a copy quirk. It's more than that, but it's easier to explain like that in concept. Izuku said, covering his entire quirk with a half-truth. Stella nodded her head, and then they heard a small cough, and they turned around to find Astrea looking at the two of them. Stella, is this the boy that saved you from the bullies? She asked, and Stella nodded her head. Astrea thanked Izuku, who said it wasn't a problem. Izuku, would you take Stella around the place and entrain her for an hour or so until we are finished? Hisashi said, and Izuku agreed, and took her hand and lead her away. Though boy children could hear the parents make jokes about them, which caused them to blush. Izuku took Stella to one of his favorite rooms in the building, which was the office game room. I like coming into this room since there are ways to entrain myself when I hit my limit with doing the business work, Izuku said to Stella. She nodded her head and asked if he was involved heavily in the business. I'm getting more and more involved in it. I don't go to school since I graduated high school already and working on my college degrees. I'm also privately training with Dad to be a hero in the future, but that will take years. He thinks he will pay for the exam outside of the hero schools when I hit 12 since he plans to train me to learn everything I need. Izuku said, and Stella nodded her head. I don't know where I want to go to hero school at. I'm recently tested out of my middle school classes and started working on high school knowledge, but I think my dad will still have me attend a hero school since they don't have the experience to train me in that regard, she stated, and Izuku nodded his head. He did tell her if she ever wanted to train, then they could try to find some time. She thanked him for the offer and told him her quirk. Izuku was interested in the quirk. It was more or less a fire aspect quirk. It was called Phoenix Queen and allowed Stella to control all fire and even heal herself with it. It also allowed her to summon and materialize an actual sword as well. That was an interesting quirk in Izuku's viewpoint, as it had several different aspects. Stella told Izuku that her family had a line of heroes in their family except for her parents, who didn't feel as if that was their calling and had decided to go into business instead. Izuku had heard several of the family hero names since he was a hero nerd in the past, and some of her family lines were quite famous heroes in France. Soon the time passed, and the meeting between the families came to an end. Stella hugged Izuku goodbye, and said she will text him later. Izuku waved back and said goodbye as well. He never realized that he never changed his hair color back either, nor felt his anger that he had towards his past family since early morning, since he was too focused on Stella the entire time. Hisashi had noticed it though, and made a note to inform the therapist of it. So, this was the end of part 2 of this series. Stay tuned for next part of this series, and if you like this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Until next time.